Well, look, I'm 52 years of age. I was born in Cork, which is the county on the most southern part of Ireland. It's the second city in the Republic. I was born on a farm. I went to local schools, went to a secondary school, went to agricultural college, and then I was home farming for a number of years before I stood for politics in 1992 for election. For election in 1992. So that would have taken me to 24 years of age. And subsequently, I became a full-time politician effectively and still am. So that's my background in terms of politics. I'm a member of the Fianna Fáil party. That would have always been the party that I would have had allegiance to, and still am a member of that party. In terms of interest, I suppose, look, I mean, nobody in Ireland could have grown up during the 70s, the 80s and the early 90s and not have an interest in Northern Ireland. It just simply couldn't escape you because of the violence, the political fallout, and all that flowed from that particular violent campaign, the IRA loyalist campaigns, and just the horrors that were being inflicted on, my fellow citizens. So, I mean, I would have had a real awareness of that. Plus the fact, some of my family members would have, my grandparents, for example, would have had some involvement in the War of Independence in 1920, 21. And they actually took different sides in the politics of post-Civil War, should we say. So I would have had an interesting political family background in that context, because it was from varying political views. So I wasn't clouded by any one judgment. But look, Fianna Fáil was the party I was aligned to. It would have been the party that would have been seen in the Republic as the party that was trying to pursue a united Ireland through peaceful means. But it was also very difficult, Henry, to articulate. And I think most political parties in the Republic didn't want to talk about a united Ireland, because that was stoking and could be seen to be stoking and encouraging the provisional IRA on one side, and then the backlash from the loyalist paramilitaries on the other side. So for 35 years, it was very difficult to talk about what you'd like to see through peaceful means, because it gave cover to those that were trying to pursue violent means.
I just wanted to ask with a big grand question. For you, is it a shared Ireland or a united Ireland?
Well, it's both, being truthful, because I mean, there's not much point in us. We're sharing the island at the moment. It's not necessarily united. I mean, we're sharing a part of the island at the moment, and while the institutions are up and working, let's be honest, there's still huge divisions based on tradition and religion and loyalty in Northern Ireland. So we're sharing the island as it is, but we are not united in any way. So my view of a united Ireland would be one that, all traditions would feel comfortable in. And that is going to be the huge challenge. And that's why I suppose we start talking about these particular issues, to ensure that it's an inclusive discussion. The idea that, the majority just rules and the minority must suck it up, that was tried in the Northern Irish state for a long time. And it certainly didn't succeed. I mean, there's no point in saying it, but Northern Ireland was a very sectarian state.
Okay, let's talk about that accommodation that you speak of. What is that? What sort of practical things, on the ground measures would need to be done to assure the average unionist or the average loyalist that they're going to be okay in some sort of new Irish dispensation?
Well, I think the first thing you'd have to ensure is that there would be a constitutional architecture that would give them a sense of belongings to their tradition, that it wouldn't be dismissed, that they wouldn't be just seen as one emblem, one national anthem, that, in other words, you do not want a situation where if they see a united Ireland as they having to give up everything they believe in and everything they're loyal to, is an issue. So, there's a strong attachment to Stormont, for example, from the unionist community. Would you have to look at a federalised system of governance in Ireland, rather than, it just being Dáil Éireann as it is in the Republic at the moment? and whether or not you would set up some form of federalised system that would give regional assemblies a stronger voice in a national situation. Flags and emblems will have to be looked at. These are all things that will be practical, but also very emotive, and totem poles for the extremists on both sides. So we have, like, the big challenge here really is, I mean, we all talk about, when we're talking about United Ireland, that, you know, it's the unionists must accept this and accept that. The bottom line here is, and Colm Eastwood of the SDLP said the other night at this webinar I was holding, that it will ask profound questions of the Republic as well, in terms of our ability to be inclusive. And that clearly is why this conversation has to happen. It's not just a case of having an election in Northern Ireland, counting the votes, and deciding that the majority now want to unite Ireland, and everybody just accepts it and move on. There's going to have to be an accommodation. There's going to have to be further constitutional, architecture put in place.
It's been said to me by an awful lot of unionist people from the centre ground right to the more extremes that the lionisation of the armed campaign in 1969 to 1997, which continues, that is a major off-put for unionists to even think about a united Ireland, that they're worried their children are going to be taught in future in school that somehow that campaign was justified and all that bloodshed was for a good cause. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's a very valid. That's not a criticism. It's a very valid observation. It's a very fundamental issue. Bear in mind, unionist people were a direct and picked out target. Just people going about their everyday lives were shot and murdered by the Provisional IRA for no other reason other than they were unionists or Protestant, and that in itself sits very uneasily with me. I mean, as an Irish citizen, I was appalled by the level of violence towards unionists just because they were unionists, or they were just picked out because they were Protestants without even knowing their political affiliations, and murdered. And the Irish state was very clear on that particular issue. Like, you know, we had a civil war in Ireland in 1922-23. And, it was quite brutal. Yeah, well, look, I mean, it is a massive subvention. The Barnett arithmetic, shoves a lot of money to Northern Ireland, and then there's side deals as well from time to time with various governments. So, I mean, but you're talking about 10 billion plus in terms of subvention. I mean, the Northern Ireland economy, look, is quite small. It's about a 70 billion GDP. The Irish economy is multiples of that. All economies across Europe are, finding a challenge at the moment. You'd like to think that initially there's going to be huge costs, of course. You have 2 police forces, you have 2 health services, you have 2 educational systems, you have a huge public service, civil service in Northern Ireland, you have a civil service, public service in the Republic. So there obviously would be a lot of costs that would have to be carried by the new state. But equally, you'd like to think that, over a period of time, the efficiencies and the dynamics of a singular economy and the efficiencies that would bring about would equally be important. And I also think there would be a lot of international goodwill. I don't expect a unionist to have to be forced to tear up their passport the following day and pledge allegiance to the Republic. I mean, that would be an affront to them. And it certainly wouldn't be a great start if we are trying to promote an all-inclusive island where everybody's rights and traditions and religions and beliefs and orientations are respected in a true republic.
Okay, it's the final line from you. If you had to sell your vision to the average unionist voter or someone who's wavering, maybe, what would it be? What would your sell be?
Well, I would like to believe that if there was 1 million plus unionists in a new Ireland, they would have huge political influence. They would have huge political influence. They would have a way more influence in a new United Ireland than they have in a United Kingdom, beyond belief. Because the makeup of the electoral system would ensure that they would have huge representation. I would also like to think that they can judge us by what we have done in recent years.